Welcome to the National Book Festival. I'm glad to see everyone. This is my second year, so please be kind to me. So welcome to the panel, Take a Trip, they said. You'll have a good time, they said, with Trang Tan Tran. They, she. So, if you love stories that get under your skin, into your bones, haunt your spirit, stories that say the quiet parts out loud, cause you to take a pause and reflect while you're doing the, ugh. She is a Haunting is absolutely a book you will want to pick up. I am your moderator, Ashley Dickerson, she, her. I am an acquisitions and cataloging specialist. I specialize in Finnish and Estonian and the rest of the Baltics as well. I'm a cosplayer, a writer, and a lover of all things spooky and making people uncomfortable. So I cannot wait to talk to my lovely author. Before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsors of the National Book Festival. At the end of the event, there will be a Q&A. The mics are in the audience. So please think of any questions you have for our author, and when it's time, I'll let you know. Trang will also have a book signing from 4 to 5 p.m. in line 7. I also want to give acknowledgement to Lamar Giles, who was supposed to be here as well, but couldn't make it, so please check out his book, The Getaway. You won't regret it. So let's jump into the interview that I've been so excited to have. There are a lot of quiet parts said out loud in the book, and a lot of them are said and acted upon by Jade. So we'll start with her. Jade is a Vietnamese-American queer bisexual teenager who is going to be the first in her family to start college. Like any teenager, she's going through a lot of things: family dynamics, troubles with best friends, falling in love and playing it on hard mode, and of course, falling in love with a ghost in her dad's kitchen. Like, the usual things that teenagers do. So I appreciate Jade for a few reasons, and one of those things is her ability to navigate intergenerational trauma and the clash of her identities being the Vietnamese diaspora. Is she straight enough? Is she Vietnamese enough? Is she American enough? Is she being the good older daughter of the family? Through Jade, I feel a lot of children of immigrants or POC parents can relate to her and the balancing act she tries to perform, me included. So please tell us, how did you craft Jade, and what kind of stories were you hoping to tell with her and through her?
So Jade really started from my own fears, right? So I love horror novels, and I love horror that really digs into like the things that you're afraid of, the things that you're afraid to say. And so Jade really came out of this fear of, going back to Vietnam, to where your parents are born, and feeling like you don't belong. Being in that space where you're sort of about to transition into adulthood and being expected to just know everything and have all the answers. I feel like teenagers are often pressured to know everything about themselves the moment they turn 18. Choose your major, choose your college, choose where you want to live, that type of thing. And so Jade is kind of dealing with all those insecurities where on the surface, she tries to be this person that's like all put together and like, emotionless, but inside she is a mess. And I'm writing this book for all the messes out there who are on the surface a mess or inside a mess. Like, it's going to be okay. And I wanted to write it as a message for a lot of people who are who haven't quite figured themselves out yet, that it's okay to be where you are, and like no matter where you are on the journey of coming out, or where you are in figuring out who you want to be in your life, it's okay.
See, and I love that about Jade, because there were some parts in the story where she was talking with Florence, for example, and Florence is obviously fluent in Vietnamese, and she was the one going to be the go-between for translating, and Jade had that insecurity of like, she's supposed to know her Vietnamese side, but she doesn't. She's supposed to have that language connection, but she doesn't. So how did you, it was beautiful how you wove that into the story, where she didn't lash out and say, I can't do this. It was a lot of moments where she kind of shut down or she reflected on that. So how did you figure out how to weave that into the story?
I feel like it's very natural if you're growing up in a household where your parents speak one language, but you're really growing up mainly in a different language, where it's like you are the bridge for them to speak English. So you're often doing the translation for them to, in English-speaking spaces, but they're not always necessarily doing the translations for you in the other language, because that's the language that they live in, right? And so I just wanted to write a very real family who's like going through it and kind of, there's not often a lot of grace, I guess, given, in families where it's like, you sort of take things for granted, right? And so I wanted to write with that idea that, like in her mom's eye, like her daughter is already perfect, even if she's not speaking, Vietnamese perfect. So she's not thinking in the same way that Jade is thinking, where like, oh, I'm deficient in this language and everyone else knows it, right? Her mom doesn't see her that way, but she thinks that her mom sees her that way. She thinks that other people sees her that way.
Yes, and I loved her book. I'm sorry. When we were talking earlier, I was gushing over your book. So another aspect I did want to tap into was Jade's queerness, because I believe she is bi in the book. And I feel like it wasn't necessarily a struggle. Like, she knew who she was, but it was hard for her to tell her family, tell her friends knew, but it was hard for her to talk about this with her mom and talk about with her dad. So talk about a little bit that struggle that she has, the insecurities, and without spoiling it, the big dynamic moments that happen between her telling her mom and her talking to her dad about it.
Yeah. I mean, how many, coming out straight stories do you know? Where it's like you sit down with your parents and you're like, I have something to tell you. I'm straight. So it's like, so for Jade, it's like, what is she supposed to do? Like have this whole, sit everyone down at the dinner table and be like, I like people of any gender. It's not a conversation that she has seen in media, but also just not a conversation that she feels like she has to have, even though that I think I think it's important for Jade to be recognized as who she is by her family and her, especially her mom, who she really, really loves. But it's just that awkward space of like, if you never speak who you are, do they really know you? But at the same time, like, you are who you are. You don't need validation from other people. So Jade really walks that line of like, I am who I am, but at the same time, I want my mom to really see me.
Because she really did love her mom. Like, I love the relationship that Jade had with her mom. It was very close-knit. It was very protective, very respectful, but just overall very loving. And then there's her dad. So casual pivot, just 2 degrees to talk about Jade's relationship with her dad. So I appreciate the relationship she had with her dad towards the end, because he was not my favorite. I was not necessarily on his side, but I eventually grew to understand him because there was a lot to unpack with her dad. So the story starts, this is not a spoiler, I'm trying my best. The story starts with Jade having to go to Vietnam to spend time with her dad in the French colonial house that he's flipping to turn into a bed and breakfast kind of thing. And you can tell that there's already a complexity with their relationship. So the family is split. The parents, I believe, are still married, but they're separated, so they very much live like they're divorced. And you learn that it's not just, oh, Jay just doesn't like her dad. There's a lot of complexities with the relationship, such as the dad dealing with a lot of traumas himself that he hasn't vocalized with his family, but they're affected by his traumas. And that affects, of course, the relationship he has with Jade. So talk about the relationship Jade has with her father, how to explore the good and the bad, and what people can take away from their relationship.
Yeah, Jade's relationship with her father is complicated because there's a lot of things unsaid between them. And yet, so Jade is someone who thinks that she's not at all like her dad, and yet may find throughout the story that they share similarities, particularly with Jade's dad really, really he also wants a place to belong. I mean, why else is he back in Vietnam, the place where he's born, but left as a child on a boat? and rebuilding this house, trying to reclaim it and rewrite the history of this house that was built during French colonialism, right? It's because he wants a place to belong as well, and that is also one of Jade's drivers. She wants a place to belong and feel like she's welcome there. And so they're driven by very similar things, and yet they never tell each other. And I think families that have a lot of holes in their family history, particularly because of colonialism, war, other things, like there are some things that you have to accept that you'll never know about your family. And those things haunt you, and those things continue to have consequences in each generation. So the things that her father couldn't tell Jade, the things that he went through, the things he had to leave behind, the people he had to leave behind. And now Jade has to live with, his efforts to try and reclaim that space. And so it's a very emotional line between them, where they're both trying to get what they want and in turn also hurting each other in the process.
Yeah. 'Cause, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but that was something that I thought was really important with your book, with your work, and showing with their relationship, was the intergenerational trauma and how much intergenerational trauma can impact, relationships parents have with their kids. Because at the end of the day, parents do love their children, but, when you're a kid, you kind of forget that, oh, my parent is human. They have feelings, they have thoughts, they have their own stressors, but you don't see that because they're being too strict, or they're yelling, or they're doing what's best for the family, but not really, I guess they're doing the best that they can with what they have. Like, they only have so many tools in their toolkit. And, I just kind of want to dive a bit into that, about how you showcase that with Jade's father. Like the sternness, but also this strong man who is doing all of the things that he can. Just a bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to survive, and people find ways to survive, right? And the way that Jade's dad survived is being stern, not closing off and not letting people see sort of these weak parts of himself, right? And in turn, it's sort of things that Jade has picked up as well. She is also very reluctant to show that she's weak, or that she's hurting. And so it's complicated, because it's like, to survive, he had to be this way, but at the same time, the way that he's surviving can also sometimes hurt other people.
And we're not going to ignore Jade's mom, because she's also going through her own struggle. So by all means, talk about, even though the book spends a lot of time in Vietnam, because we're, the 5 weeks and everything, but Jade's mom is also going through her own struggles. And it was nice to see those lightly hinted throughout the book, especially towards the really big end, that I just, trying not to spoil. I'm doing my very best. Please read the book.
Yeah. I mean, when I was writing the book, I really wanted to write a wide range of Vietnamese families and Vietnamese stories of how people came to America and how their families look like now, right? So Jade's father is on one spectrum, where he left as a child and he's the only one who made it to the US. And Jade's mom made it, but she has a gigantic family, and they all still keep in contact. And Jade's mom in the book, the beginning of the book, is back for the first time in 2 decades, and yet still have a very strong relationship with her family. And so I wanted to show the full range of what these stories can look like when they're just given the creativity to kind of bloom as they are.
And on the flip side of that, Jade's father, his relationship with his family is kind of torn, I guess?
Yeah. It's sort of that guilt, right? If he's the only one who made it, that means that the rest of his family didn't. So, his siblings are still back in Vietnam, and there often is a lot of tension in, Vietnamese diaspora families, people who live in the U.S. versus the people who live in Vietnam, because, it's very different lifestyles, very different everything. It's different cultures that you're, becoming used to. And, if I were to go back to Vietnam and just step off the plane, they would know immediately that I live in the U.S., basically, just by looking at me. It's sort of that, there is that tension, and I wanted to show, at least through Jade's father, what that tension can look like when there's sort of this stressor between you and your family. Like, you're the one who made it. You should be successful, and you have no problems at all because you don't live here.
Yeah, and that's where I guess my emotional empathy really did lean with the father, because there was a moment where he was talking to, I believe, like his older siblings, and it was clear they didn't say that they were proud of him or that they were, happy for him. It was just, you can tell that he really wanted their approval. He really wanted their love or their respect, and at least them to show up, and they just cut him off. So is that something that is, I don't want to say common, but is that something you really wanted to make sure was pressing in the book?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's common, but in particular for that situation, I wanted to show like a family that was really broken up by the fact that they're separated by a literal ocean, and what that looks like when you're still trying to reconnect years and years later.
I love that. So just kind of, again, a nice little cute little pivot, but we're going on to the other side. One of the things that I loved about your book is you really have a knack for talking about the hardest subjects, mixing it with humor, sarcasm, but definitely not sugarcoating anything, blunt honesty, but yet telling it like it is, but also not being, I guess, too aggressive, but still driving the point home. So in the book, there are topics such as colonialism and racism that occurs. And I remember I posted about this on Threads to you about when Jade first met Alma for the first time, and one of the thoughts she had in her head and Alma is one of the investors for Jade's father's flipping the colonial house into the bed and breakfast kind of scenario. And I remember the quote she said was, "This woman has a PhD in colonialism, and I'm supposed to mindlessly defer to her." And that was just like one of the many ways that Jade, in her way, even though she may not have said it out loud, but these were one of her ways to say the quiet parts out loud, talk about the French colonial style house and how, there is the colonialism that happened in Vietnam, the history of Vietnam, and how deeply rooted that is with her family, and also tying her family to the house, because the family used to work. I believe her dad's family used to work for the people who used to own that house way back when. So talk about your thought process incorporating these kinds of topics into your work and why it felt important for Jade to make these commentaries.
I think the first thing is that I wanted a book that was funny and a book that was straightforward, because Jade is funny and straightforward, right? And even though it's like in this really tough situation, a really horrible place, a haunted house in Vietnam where all these terrible things happen, I wanted her to respond how any teenager would when they hear something really, really dumb. Right? So it's sort of like stating the obvious. Like, I mean, how many times have teenagers, sat in classrooms and learned about something about their own communities that was either wrong or just misrepresented, right? And I wanted Jade to have that commentary in her head for the reader to see, even if she isn't necessarily speaking it out loud. But I wanted her to have that moment where she does speak it out loud, like really speak it out loud later. So I don't write with the idea that I'm teaching anything, that I am exploring some deep subject. I just try to write honestly and emotionally, and that means accepting that these things have happened and that it's layered in the way that we live in the world, the way that my characters live in that world, the things that are being influenced. And so it's just kind of not sugarcoating it and just kind of treating it as it is. And through Jade, who is funny, just making smart ass remarks all the time.
That's the one thing I loved about Jade, because like I said, she had a knack for just being blunt and honest and just commenting on Thomas and Alma's relationship, not just to the house, because the investor part was kind of like, okay, sure. But it added to the layer of colonialism, because again, how did the French find their way into Vietnam and things of the sort? Again, the harder topics, but I really appreciated how you figured out how to make it clear and like you say, layer, showing that this is how we live normally. You wouldn't think of it, or someone saying, oh, a French colonial house. That's nice. But when I was reading the book, I was like, French colonial house in Vietnam?
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. So are all of your other works or any other work that you plan on doing in the future, are they also going to talk about the Vietnamese diaspora and hinting things like that?
Yeah, so all of the stories I'm working on now feature, Vietnamese American protagonists and really exploring where they are in a space. And often, that tangles up with things like, where Vietnamese people settled when they first came to the U.S. And that has a lot of economic reasons for why they settled. A lot of people settled in the South, for example, because they did shrimping for a trade. People settled where there were factories. So of course there's questions about class and doing the type of labor that they're getting into. So yeah, it kind of touches on it very naturally. So it's not something that I strive to do, but it's just something that comes out in the process of creating a character living in the real world.
So just to take a spit back, just to get off something a little heavy, something I guess a little bit more lighthearted to a degree. So as I've mentioned earlier, Jade is the eldest sister. So she has two other siblings, and her younger sister comes with her while she's in Vietnam with her dad. And one of the things I do want to talk about is the dynamic between, as I mentioned before, Jade's parents, they're married but they're separated. Her siblings and her live with their mom in Philadelphia, I believe. And you have Jade, who remembers so many vivid things about her parents, especially her father. But you have her little sister, who is very hopeful, very loving. I want to bring the family back together. And you have Jade, who's throughout the book, at least in the beginning, she wants nothing to do with her dad. So talk about that relationship with her sister, her dad, and Jade kind of trying to make everything work, but also sometimes giving her sister space to have her own relationship with her father.
Yeah, so there are actually three kids in the Wynn family, and the youngest is Brendan, and the middle is Lily, and the oldest is Jade. And by design, we don't really talk about Brendan much because he's the only boy. He's a prize child, right? And so
He loves ants.
yeah, he loves ants. I so oftentimes when you're growing up in a family, you and your siblings, you can live with the same people, but you don't have the same experiences with your parents. One person may have a very good relationship with their parents, and the other one might not. And so you would think that they have the same upbringing, but they don't. And so through Jade and Lily, who's separated by about 3 to 4 years, it's they have very different viewpoints about what happened in their family. And when you have a different viewpoint, that means that you see them differently. You feel different things about them. And so you want different things for your family. And so for Jade, who's the oldest and who bore the brunt of a lot of things that happened, she doesn't want anything to do with it, right? And so she wants their family just to kind of stay as it is, apart. And yet Lily wants to bring them back together. And so they do many things that end up hurting each other because they're trying to get this goal of either breaking apart their family or bringing them back together. So Jade wants her sister to have that space to have a relationship with her dad, but the problem is that her sister is trying to drag Jade into it and also make them kind of come together again.
Brandon still loves bugs.
Yeah.
That was the cutest moment. It was also, sir, I need you to pay attention. Things are, but then again, I knew things were happening in the house because let's talk about this house. This house is haunted. This house is creepy. Yes, but I loved how you talked about how beautiful but also how disgusting the house is from multiple layers. So for one, there are moments where it's infested with bugs. Jade can feel the house. She can hear the house. It's almost like she can tell when the house is pleased and when the house is not happy. And that was really cool. So talk about how did you formulate to make this? Because this house obviously has a lot of history to it. So it's not just a regular house. Because there is the family that used to live in the house that used to employ Jade's father's family.
Yeah.
So describe that house. Describe how you incorporated that kind of feeling into the creepiness.
So there are abandoned houses in Đài Lạt. Vietnam is the Central Highlands in the mountains where the weather is cool. There are French colonial houses that are still standing, abandoned there from when they were originally built. And the French settled in Đài Lạt because they wanted a resort town. It was cooler than the rest of the country. And so they they made it their space to kind of go on vacation. And that's from when this house was built. And so I drew a lot of inspiration from the houses that are still standing there, all creepy and sort of holding all of this history. And I really wanted to explore, what these spaces that are beautiful and have all this history and are now rotting, and yet are still standing. What memories do they hold? What things have happened there that only the house knows, right? And so in the book, the house has its own chapters. Every few of Jade's chapters, there's a house chapter, and the first line is, "This house eats and is eaten," because I wanted to portray the house as another force that is acting in this world. A house also has things that it wants. It wants to be lived in. It wants to be admired. At least this house does. Mm-hmm. And so the way I went about it is just really placing the house in a time. So really understanding when this house was built, who lived in this house, who died in this house, and who survived in this house. Because that's going to build the walls of the house, and that's going to leave behind the memories that I want to explore.
So that explains the house chapters, I believe, where it's like kidney, liver.
Yeah, they're named after body parts.
Of course they were. Because at first when I was reading them, it was okay. And because I love morbid things, I was like, okay, kidney, maybe this has something to do with what the kidney functions as. Mm-hmm. And then the more I read, it was like, I feel like this is the house talking to me, and I don't like it. Just talk to Jade.
The house is talking to you.
It's like, stay with Jade. This is her problem. I didn't ask for this. But that was something that really, really stuck out to me, was how visceral these feelings were. How you crafted a way to, when you're reading the book, it feels like you're there. You feel the heat, you feel the humidity, you feel and can almost smell the bugs that, one little brother just loves so much. Mm-hmm. And the flowers, the flower beds. What are the significance of those flower beds, especially when they're, the vines and stuff are creaking onto the house? Because it's not just the house that's alive. It's the land surrounding is also alive. Mm-hmm.
So I drew a lot of inspiration from Gothic horror. So in Gothic horror, there's often, the rotting house and the beautiful and lush flowers in the landscape, right? And so I wanted that element in there. I wanted to do a Gothic horror that's focused on a Vietnamese family, a modern Vietnamese family who's dealing with the things in the past that are still kind of clinging its fingers into the present. And so I wanted to use the flowers as a metaphor for, these flowers surviving through everything, through all the horrible things that have happened, and growing from it, and just enveloping this house, and just almost like bamboozling people, mm-hmm. Oh, look, these flowers are gorgeous, mm-hmm. but really, and being unable to see what is lying underneath.
Mm-hmm. And with those creepiness, the bugs, that was another thing, aside from the house creaking, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this house is literally going to kill them. Why are they still here? Don't make this into an Airbnb. Let's all leave. Let's all pretend this doesn't exist. This is a nightmare. So what is the significance with all the insects, especially the ones, okay, I'm going to spoil this one because it's on the cover, so this is my freebie to you. The bugs that are coming out of Jade's mouth in one of the chapters.
I have a morbid interest in parasites. And
Monsters Inside Me on Animal Planet?
Oh my goodness. I bought a season of it. When it wasn't on the TV, I bought a season of Monsters Inside Me, because that's the person that I am. And when you write a book, you got to put things that you like in it. You got to put things that you're terrified of in it, because parasites can be in anything. And so that was one of the fears that I was playing with in the book is, what if you don't know what you're eating? And what if you don't know what's eating you? So
there is very much that, especially with the ghost that Jade was having a crush on in the kitchen, saying don't eat, and giving her hints of not to eat the food. So is that a relation to the parasitic interest, or was the food something else?
There is a relation, right? There's a reason why the ghost in the kitchen warns her not to eat. The other reason why there are a lot of food scenes in the book is that food is a big part of my culture. Food is a big part of my family culture, where we're always eating, and food, I feel like, can be an important part in a family where it's there's power at play with food, right? You forcing people to come to the table to eat, controlling what people eat, and sort of putting things over people's head, like, oh, you have to come to dinner if you want to do this, or you have to come to dinner to do that. And so food is a power play, and I wanted to show how Jade's dad uses food to control Jade, both in making her come to dinner to try and fix this relationship, but also what else is he influencing her by feeding her these various very delicious Vietnamese meals.
Especially that, like, again, I'm trying so hard. So we will talk about this later.
Yeah.
But for the sake of everyone who I don't want to spoil this for, that one moment at the end where she does come to the dinner table finally. Because for a long time she was kind of protecting her sister, telling her sister, who happens to be, I believe, vegan.
Yep.
So she was protecting her sister and like cooking meals for her sister. But then there's that one moment Jade finally sits down at the table and it just seems like everything's coming down. It's like, oh no, you played into the hand of the evil lady.
Yeah, it's my favorite chapter.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling because low-key it was kind of my favorite chapter. So before we get into the technical stuff for all of those who want to write or are aspiring writers out there or who want hints on writing, all that stuff, the queer story that does happen between Jade and Florence, the slow build, the tsundere, that's an anime term. I'm not going to spell that out loud. But I love the relationship and I love the build. Was it important to have that relationship shown in the book for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, what better wrench to throw in someone's plans and staying closeted than putting a cute girl on a motorcycle? Just weird and just asking all the questions, like pulling down your barriers, right? It's fun. And I was like, Jade, go get it.
Falling in love while your house is haunted is wild.
Yeah, I mean, what better setting, right?
Especially since Florence knew. And I loved how there was because it kind of goes back to Jade's, insecurities of her Vietnamese identity. Because you have Florence who knows Vietnamese, who speaks it fluently, who's very immersed in culture. And I guess when Jade kind of looks at her, Jade is the other one. She's the quote unquote American, but Florence is not. So I did like that counterbalance you had with them. And was that kind of a thought process when you had them together, or was it just girl needs a girlfriend because your life is messing up?
I mean, she's sort of messy, so it's sort of like I wanted for her to have someone to play off of that was sort of unserious, because Jay tries too hard to be serious all the time, and having someone who was fit perfectly in the Vietnamese culture because she was born there, just being like, why do you care about all these things? It's not that big of a deal that you think it is, right? And no one is thinking about you as much as you were thinking about yourself.
That part. So let's dive in for all of the writers, aspiring writers out there. Do you have any tips on how to create atmosphere? Because like I gushed over before, but behind the scenes and to everyone who's watching, you have a great way of setting the scene and making people feel grossed out. So what kind of tips do you have for someone who wants to kind of write that kind of vibe?
I feel like you always have to write what you love. So it's like, what are the vibes that you love? Like for the atmosphere, I drew upon a lot of different media that I really love. So I loved The Haunting of Hill House, both the original book and the Netflix adaptation, which was so creepy in different ways. And the book is sort of claustrophobic and really intense. There's this slow build and all of a sudden everything awful just hits the fan. And for the series, it's dark and moody, a very family story. So really focus on, for writers, really think about what settings inspire you and what makes your particular setting unique and makes you excited to write about it.
And my next question kind of plays into that. What other tips would you give inspiring writers, especially those who want to talk about horror or mix in intergenerational traumas and things like that?
I think it's just write your truth. Write what you know and find your way through it. It's not I don't think it's a conscious decision, like, I have to write about this trauma. It's like, you just start writing, you're like, oh, these two idiots fall in love, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, all my trauma is seeped in. And it just happens, and sometimes you just gotta roll with it.
See, that's awesome. So for your writing journey, were you always set out to be a writer? Or did writing just like made sense, like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do?
I have always wanted to be a writer since I was a kid, but my mom told me no because it's not a stable career. It's very hard to make a living off of, and so I did other things. You know, I wrote on the side for fun, and I did more stable things. But eventually, I just hit a point where I was like, what am I doing with my life? If I die and I don't explore my passions, I'm also really dramatic sometimes. If I die and don't explore my passions, like, I will regret it in the afterlife, I guess.
That is so dramatic. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna be a spirit.
So I was, it was the middle of the pandemic, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna spend a year just giving it all that I have. And of course, I've always wanted to be a writer. I wrote on the side, and so in that year, I just was like, you're jobless. Just get it out there. Just just write what you want to write. And it was really fun.
Okay, so basically, just try, jump for it, dive off the deep end with a casual plan?
Yeah, just make sure you can eat and have health insurance. You're housed. Those are the 3 important things.
Yes, or things to strive for. So who was your favorite character? Like, what character in this book, all of them, any of them, all of them on topic, even if it casually spoils it, which was your favorite character in this book?
That's really hard because I really do love all of them, and I have a soft spot for Jade because she drew upon so many of my anxieties. And this is going to be a weird answer, but I like her dad. He's awful, but I feel like he's awful, he's terrible, but he's like complex, right? And so, and I like how that plays off of Jade. It's like, this is the source of all her trauma. And so,
No, I also agree because, like I said, at first I wasn't a super huge fan of Jade's father because it was the strictness, because it was the you're forcing your daughter to do a thing, family togetherness, da 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 da, and it's like, but then again, thinking with an adult mind, it's like he's going through his own stuff, he's going through his own complexities, he's going through his own issues, and he's doing the best that he can, but it's clear in the end of the book he really does love. He loves all of his kids, but it was like he really loves Jade. Not saying he was singling her out, but it was just that moment of love.
yeah, you can love someone and still do terrible things to them.
100%. So, what was your favorite scene to write?
My favorite scene. That's probably that scene that we talked about earlier where Jade comes to the dinner table. You'll know which one it is.
So I love that scene because I think that was, I'm going to stay with it. That was like my favorite scene, including the end. But one of the scenes that I think stuck with me in terms of romance, because I'm a sucker for romance, it was definitely a moment between Jade and Florence when they were sitting in her bedroom. I'm not going to spoil it, and also keeping things in context. But I loved how you showed the dynamic of their relationship, the blossoming of their relationship, and the slow burn of their relationship. So what was the inspiration or drive behind that kind of slow build and kind of because we never really figured out, or you never really mentioned what Florence's sexuality is, and it didn't really matter. It was all about love, and it was all about these two just found each other and connected. So yeah, talk a little bit about that.
I mean, what's worse when you're a teenager than a crush, right? All of your feelings are on the line. It's like, it's so intense. And so I wanted Jade to have this experience, this very emotional experience of falling for someone in the most terrible place that she could, in a haunted house. And having it be a slow burn is intentional because, Jade is someone who has a lot of layers to her. She's like an onion. So it's like,
the
Shrek onion, yeah, sorry. Really? So it's like all these layers to her that you kind of have to peel over time. And only Florence, who's weird enough, will stay for the onion.
Florence will be weird enough to stay for the onion. So I love that. I'm not going to, I'm not going to go harp on to that. But what are other works that you're working on? If you can tell us, is there a, maybe not a sequel, but something spinning off on this book, or what other things are you doing?
So I don't have a spin-off to this book, but I have a second YA horror book, and it's all about a monster who learns to love herself. And I'm also working on an adult gothic horror book.
Sounds on brand, especially the monster who loves herself. So where can our lovely audience find you on your socials and things of the sort?
So I am on Instagram at nvtran_ or on Twitter, nvtran. Or you can find me on my website, my name.
Which is awesome. I love you. So I want to get into the Q&As so badly. Is it okay that I jump into the QAs? Okay, cool. Because I know I have so many other things to talk about. For those who have any Q&As, if you want to come up early before I keep gabbing, because I can keep gabbing. Cool, I can give you guys conversation. So anyway, now I'm glad I can keep going with my conversation. So one of the things in the book that I don't want to say respect. I don't know how to phrase it, so I'm just going to try to be as calm about this as possible. So you did, again, going back to the colonialism, you did bring up the family that previously used to live in the house and one of the ghosts that frequents Jade and the mythicism that happened in there. So if you don't mind, would you like to talk a little bit more about that, the previous family, Jade? Could we kind of learn a little bit about Jade's father's family with that? But the house having the secrets, the house knowing the secrets, and the house kind of like showing Jade those stories.
So the house was originally built for a French soldier and his wife who lived there, who threw a lot of parties. And so the house, and she was someone who was like she commanded the space really well and loved being admired. And so what happens when a younger, prettier bride is brought into your house, a Vietnamese bride? How does she feel about that? Like someone who's sort of overtaking the spotlight. And so the original people who lived in the house is also a family, but a family who has very different relationships with each other because they're also far away from home, and yet they're in this space trying to claim it and also putting their name out there and really becoming well known. And so what kind of legacy do they leave behind in this house? And that's the story that I wanted to tell, where it's like all these complications from the past kind of messing up the present, when these ghosts or like these memories or these things that happen in the house come up and are unearthed. How do the people in the present, how can they deal with that?
Mm-hmm. And with Jade kind of navigating all those spaces, because again, a lot is happening. She's having a crush, falling in love, trying to keep her family together, and little by little, like almost every day, she tries to understand what the house eats. So I guess my question is, what does the house eat?
I think that's up for interpretation. If you read the book, you can kind of get a sense of like what the house really wants and what because hunger is not just the starvation of like, wanting food and wanting to be fed. Hunger is also the things that you really want: love, recognition, respect. What are the things that we hunger for in our everyday lives? What are the things that these spaces hunger for? Why do we put grand names on buildings? Why do we recognize these places as historic landmarks? What house wouldn't want to be recognized as a historic landmark, right? So like everything has a desire, everything has a hunger for something. And that's kind of how I explored it in the book, is that everyone hungers for something, even if it's not something that you can feel or touch.
So that's beautiful. So with that said, because I love that, if you have any questions, if you have any things, please come to the mics above and we will totally answer them.
Just a short question. Well, actually, a long one.
By all means.
Because I can't do anything short. I just play with writing, but with all the complexities that are in this story, how do you actually write it? I mean, do you get down, have a guideline first, or? you know, something like that. It's got to be an intense start just to put it together.
Sticky notes everywhere.
I'm the most chaotic drafter.
Sticky notes everywhere.
So it's like not even sticky notes everywhere, just sentences everywhere. I've talked about this before where like sometimes I get a lot of inspiration at the sentence level, like a feeling that I'm really feeling and how I want that image to look to people. So oftentimes I'll have a line that I want to be in like chapter 20 and I'll put that in chapter 20 and then but I'm nowhere near chapter 20. I'm writing a line for chapter 10. I'm very chaotic in that way. But everyone works differently. So for me, what I always need to know at the very beginning is that I need to know the ending to my story because I'm always writing towards the ending. Between here and the ending, there are a few emotional landmarks that I want to hit. So I'm like, okay, in the midpoint, in the middle of the book, this happens, and I want it to feel this way. So I'm always writing sort of with a flashlight. Some people outline chapter by chapter, but that doesn't work for me, so I just do the flashlight. You know, I just go towards the next thing that I know what's happening. What happens when I'm done with the draft, which is often, you know, messy, not nowhere near perfect, is that I will re-outline. Now I'll go back, I'll reverse outline, I'll see what I actually wrote. So I'll go chapter by chapter. Okay, chapter 1, this happens, this is a plot line I established, or this is the thing that I dropped the ball on. And I do the reverse outline in Excel, weirdly enough, where each line is a chapter, and then each column is, you know, a character I'm tracking, a plot line I'm tracking, you know, whatever I'm tracking. And if I see a bunch of blank spaces going down, then I know I've dropped the ball on that character or this plot line because I haven't mentioned it or I haven't done anything with it.
Side, do you have beta readers by any chance?
I do. It often helps me to have an alpha reader, actually, like someone who's reading the absolute trash and being like, that's great, keep going. Like, that's so important to have. But yes, I do have beta readers as well.
Cool. Yes.
Hello. So I was just wondering, since you write horror, I think one really interesting aspect about it is that you can embody like all of these sort of internal things about fear and horrifying things that we go through in our lives, and put them into this external thing like a monster or a house, so that the characters can navigate it and walk around and interact with it. And sometimes there's like a moment of catharsis, or just it sort of can help untangle those complicated feelings. And I was wondering which parts of that appeal to your particular brand of creativity and why it inspires you.
I just love the process of like making something that like you fear into something that's actually real. You know, like what happens when a ghost is the one who says, you know, if you step inside this house, you'll always belong. The temptation that you have to stay if you're someone who always hungered for a space to belong, right? That really appeals to me, is connecting the horror and the emotion all together and making it alive in some type of animals, type of monster, the house. That's really appealing to me creatively. But I also love horror of all kinds, and I think there's spaces for every type of reader and to find the horror that suits them.
Yeah, you can really sense that, especially because there are times where Jade does leave the house, but even when she leaves the house, she's always thinking, of course she's thinking about going back for her sister because, you know, protective older sister, she knows the real deal with the house, but it's always this, but other than that, there's always like this deeper pull of like, come back, you're here, this is where you're supposed to be, we need you, she's the only one that can understand the house kind of thing. Love that tension.
Hello. I really wanted to understand your thought process in bringing, I guess, your own personal stories, your message, getting the reader to understand not just you, but your culture. I feel like at times there's so many stories of your personal self that you want to share. How did you limit it? Like, because you have a goal, you have an idea, but at times you feel like there's so much you want to incorporate and you want to make sure you don't deviate from what your original plan is. So how did you approach that?
I would say that you always just have to write for yourself. And that means that sometimes you write and you don't explain what you mean. Because, you know, someone who is in your community, someone who's in your culture will get it right away. And then someone else who doesn't, they can Google it, like oftentimes people in different communities have had to do before. And I don't try to, throw everything in. I just think about the character and where they're coming from. Like, what makes this character real? And really just creating enough space and enough context that this person feels real. I don't think about it in terms of like, oh, I have to create this and have it like a list of things for people to understand about the culture. It's no, I'm creating a person from who shares the same culture as me, who have these different characteristics. They're just a person, right? And naturally, from them growing up in these spaces, that just comes through in the writing as well. And their thought process, it just very naturally comes up, like, the different things that happen in the community, or the different things that they enjoy in their community, like Jade and the food. All those things just naturally came up. It wasn't like, I have to talk about pho right now, or like bongrio right now. I don't have to talk about those things. Yeah.
Were there any regrets or things that you wish you could have added into the book? Or maybe things that didn't make the editing floor, something like that?
Actually, no. Like, this book is pretty much everything that I wanted it to be, which is, very strange.
Strange is putting it lightly, but I love that about your personality. You said it, not me. So how long did it take you to write this book? That's just me.
It was a wild process in that I wrote this book in 2.5 months, and then I edited it over 4 months before it sold. But that's not the usual process. My second book has been awful, so it really ranges for every single book, because every book is different.
What's something you want people to take away from this book? It could be either some of the characters. Oh, we have a question, so answer that first.
I was just going to ask, on the schedule, it says take a trip, they said. You'll have a great time, they said. I was wondering if you came up with that, and then what exactly the title of this talk is like supposed to mean, what you meant with it.
Yeah, so I didn't come up with a title, but the title originally came from the fact that, Jade is, she takes a trip to Vietnam, and it is a trip that she's forced to do. It's a summer trip. She's there for 5 weeks, and you would think that with trips, it's like, oh, it's going to be so fun. Like, we're going to go to a different country, swim in some beaches, but no, she's going there and she's working in this French colonial house with her dad, and like, really, because, when people hear, oh, you're going on vacation for 6 weeks somewhere, you think you're going to enjoy your time, but that isn't necessarily it. So I think the title is referencing the fact that, these teenagers are going to these places and you think they're going to have a good time, but they're not.
Yeah, and I also didn't come up with the title, but the title, it also relates to that, and also the other book from the other author, Lamar Giles, The Getaway. So that book deals with kind of a theme of, oh, this place is perfect. What could ever go wrong?
That book is incredible, The Getaway. You should pick it up, Lamar Giles. It's a horror book. It's so creepy.
Creepy, sure. Yours is creepy. His was just diabolical.
Yeah.
So-
we were just talking about how we really wanted to interrogate what was wrong with Lamar Giles.
Yes. So definitely pick up The Getaway. It was so good because, like I said, it's supposed to be a book of, oh, this place is perfect, everything is great, everything is fine, and then everything is aggressively not fine. Everything is aggressively terrible, and there are similar themes between yours and his book. There is the talk of racism, there is the talk of classism, things like that, with a lot of horror, diabolical things, which is impressive for a Scholastic book. So bravo to them. But yes.
Did you know how the story was going to end when you started, or did it change as you went along?
I knew the ending when I started. I usually have the ending image of how I want the book to feel. It's like a shot of a movie. What do you want the last shot of your movie to be? What emotion do you want people to walk away with? I have to know that before I write, because I'm always writing towards that moment. That's what I'm excited for.
I love that question, honestly. So if you're writing with the ending in mind, how did you figure out, so what was the thought to put put everything how you put them?
Like the middle?
Mm-hmm.
The middle. The middle is a terrible abyss where it's, oftentimes I'm texting my friends, what goes in the middle? I don't know. So I'm chasing after, this climax at the end. So I have to know, who's at the climax? Who survives at the climax? What decisions do my characters make that lead them there? So often the middle is a lot of ups and downs as they're investigating or they're doing this or that. So it's just a matter of understanding that to get to this climax, there's still a whole lot of other messed up stuff they have to go through. So you feel motivated to keep going.
Yeah, because it was like, well, we're in it together now. This
Yeah.
is a trauma bond now. We're
Yeah.
here together. Okay, I'm here with you, Jade, in spirit, not in theory, but in spirit.
Yeah.
So what is one thing or one of a few things that you want people to take away from reading your book?
I think the main thing is that I want people to know that they're always enough, no matter where they are in their journey, no matter where they are in their life. Even if you haven't had anything figured out, you are enough of who you need to be at that moment. So, I think we have to-
Yes.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, since what you're writing is so sinister and horrific and traumatic,
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Someone
you.
said it.
what do you do to relax?
Is it more Shrek movies?
Oh, it's not Shrek. I relax by watching horror. So I recently saw Talk to Me in a theater. Amazing. So yeah, I relax by watching and consuming other media. I read a lot of horror as well. It's like, well, I didn't write the book, so I can enjoy the process.
Oh, thank you. That's so
Thank you.
nice. No, I feel like that's a lot.
I also love to cook. I love to eat. So yeah.
I feel like everyone who's into morbid things, it's always the, oh, what are you watching in your downtime? It's like, true crime? Don't look at me over here. So what is your favorite horror, since you clearly do not like downtime with Shrek and things that are like happy?
Like my favorite horror show, or okay, my favorite horror movie right now is Talk to Me. Just came out. Favorite zombie movie, Train to Busan. Favorite horror show, Haunting of Hill House.
See, I respect you. I knew I liked you. Like, oh, you know, like, I see,
Yeah.
I see you. See, you're awesome. So what would be, again, trying to like not spoil it, because you guys, I've been trying so hard for this past hour not to spoil this book for you. All I can say is definitely She is a Haunting. Please read it. You will enjoy it. You will love it. You will get creeped out. You will be disgusted. There are plenty of parts to be disgusted by. A lot of things happen.
So much.
Because there were so many times where I just read the book and I'm just like, that's enough for tonight. I'm just gonna go talk to my friends. What are you guys doing? But one of the things that I did really, I guess, since we have time, we do have time, that I did want to bring up is the connection with family. Because at first, I'm not gonna lie, I thought the ghost in the kitchen was gonna be related to Jade, and I was like, girl, don't fall in love with the ghost that's just randomly haunting your kitchen. Fall in love with the ghost who's in the library, I guess. That's a little bit better. But haunting in a kitchen, telling you not to eat, stop, girl. Get your life. But
She looked really good in the refrigerator lighting.
the refrigerator lighting of that nice fridge that kept rotting food, yes. That's the ambiance everyone should aspire for.
She's a teenager. She makes bad decisions, okay?
But I did love how she learned more, because the one thing with parents is they never always tell you about their family, or especially if, you know, they don't have a strong relationship with their family. But the thing is, she did learn about her family through that house, through some of the things that she found in that house. And I really appreciate that moment. Was there any like thought or relation to, any thought to that of how she was kind of like filling in the blanks that her dad never gave her?
Yeah. So it goes back to, you know, the holes in your family history that gnaw at you, that make you feel like you have to keep digging, you have to figure it out. And then the realization that there are some answers that you'll never have. And so Jade goes through that whole journey of, you know, realizing that there's more to her dad, there's more to her family, and there's things that she has to know. And that's kind of like the driver, right? Like the things that people are haunted by that they don't even know have existed before.
Ooh, we have one more question.
I'm just curious if you can comment on the cover art, which is brilliant.
Yeah. So the cover is by an Italian artist named Elena Massi, and it's gorgeous. So Bloomsbury, my publisher, and I went back and forth a lot about the cover, and I wanted the cover to have a Vietnamese girl front and center, because there's not often many, I don't think many or if any Vietnamese characters in horror, and especially not to survive to the end. So I wanted it to be obvious that there's a Vietnamese final girl in this book. And so her face is on it, and then the beautiful flowers that draw you in, and then there are little bugs So
And the tear, that was the
the
one
glossy
part.
tear.
Yes.
Just hold the book like this. So you'll see it.
Yes, the glossy, like that was the one thing I did love about the cover. Because like you said, because no one's happy when you find out there's a bug and plants crawling out of your mouth. Like no one's just like, oh, this is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
So, yep, we are at time. So thank you everyone for tuning into this lovely talk.
Thank you.